Hello, Inu Ame here. I put together time lapses of my artwork and I present them to you. There are a few art pieces where I do explain my thoughts about the process. This one especially feels necessary since I make a huge mistake with this piece, and I definitely want to explain what was going on and where I went wrong. I do manage to rescue this poor girl, so I hope you stay tuned through to the end. So, here I am, exploring this concept of my OC Adelinde sitting upon a log with a foggy background and some rain. I did eventually drop the rain from the concepts because I just couldn't find a way for it to exist that I was in love with. As for the variations, I even have one here of a train station and some power lines. A few of them drop the log entirely, just exploring the vibe I'm feeling and seeing what fits best. There is a point of exploration where it just becomes so overexplored though, and you just have to find the middle ground between the things you did manage to find. No picture is perfect after all, and sometimes you just have to know when to call it. The struggles of the perfectionist sometimes is to just find the good enough. If I'm being honest, that's probably why I've struggled with uploading my work so much. I'll have instances where I forgot to record the ending, or I didn't think a particular recording was entertaining enough, or it's too short. Now I'm seeing that I've had this YouTube channel for 15 years and only have a handful of uploads. I want to change that. I want to be able to show off my work with confidence. I have some friends and family that play my pieces over and over because they just enjoy watching me work. And that's what really makes me want to keep trying. So going forward, that's what I'm going to aim to do. I'm going to show off more time lapses with different vibes and some different styles that I've learned over the years. Like before this art piece and the Sylveon piece I uploaded just before this one, I've never actually uploaded traditional artworks before. I don't really do traditional media very often, but there's something about the tactile nature of it that's just so calming. You see, in a small way, I used it to distance myself from digital art. I would vend my artwork at conventions, so digital art was high priority and I had to create things I thought people wanted and would sell. It was intense because a lot of the time the artwork I thought people would buy didn't sell anyway. It was a lot of creative pressure on me. It was so heavy that I almost stopped making artwork altogether. But when I was creating something with just a pen and paper, it was something that was for me and only me. I guess it should have been assigned to me years ago when someone came up to my booth and bought a traditional piece right out of my hands. The paint hadn't even dried yet, and they bought the homemade piece and none of the prints I had made for the convention. Maybe that's what I'm feeling in this piece. You see, Adeline here is a farm girl who does nothing but work on the farm she was born on, and yet it's still going under. Here she's left her daily duties to go and enjoy some quiet time in the forest by herself, with no animals or failing crops to deal with. You'd think a rain dragon would have an easier time taking care of a farm, but sometimes it's just too much. She's out of her farm getup and is wearing something cute while she's considering never going back to her old life. And then when I actually get her on paper and I start playing with her colors, even though I see her in my mind with sun golden hair and sunset pinks, whenever I actually sit down to draw her, those colors just feel wrong. Like, even though she has this optimistic personality, these colors just don't feel like her colors. She's consistently bright, and it's why I originally chose the bright sun yellow and the shades of pink. She looks on the bright side, insisting everything is fine and will work out somehow. I guess in some ways she kind of contrasts her brother, since he's so dark and moody all the time and is pessimistic just about everything. Maybe she has a deep-seated desire to just contrast him by projecting hope and thoughtfulness. There must be a part of her that she denies that somewhat agrees with him, a part of herself she doesn't fully want to acknowledge, and maybe that's why these bright colors just don't seem to fit her. Because even though she plays the part she's given herself, it's not who she really is. So the more I thought about her, and the way she is when no one is looking, You know, when she sits and she places the pom-poms to the side, so to speak. She's a very calm person, choosing instead to just enjoy the moment. And even though all of these colors I explored and the color scheme, and I'm not 100% happy with what I landed on for her, but I'm just going to call it good enough. I realize now while I'm talking about this, she probably has toxic positivity installed in her. This also kind of sounds like people-pleasing, but usually people-pleasing is about avoiding conflict, and I'm not sure if that's her yet. And I guess with all this newfound time on my hands, I'll finally get to work on this comic that's been stuck in my head for years. It would be so relieving to finally let Adelinde tell us her story. About the hardships of being born into a family with no one in it, and a farm that no one has manned in 20 years, and about a snobbish prince that gets imprisoned on her property that may or may not be very cute and very off limits. Who knows, maybe future videos will feature the other characters in the cast. They all have black and white designs right now that I'm very happy with. I just need to find their colors for the most part. That is, except for Damon, the aforementioned prince. He's my wife's character, and I can't help it. I draw him the most. He's probably the most detailed character on the playing field right now. Alright, with that little tangent out of the way, I'm going to start adding colors to the background now. I'm actually not sure why I decided to have sunset colors in the sky, because I was setting out to make a foggy piece initially. I think it may be because it had several photo references of creeks that featured sunsets, so I was lured in by that aesthetic. It could also be that because I took Adelinde's pinks away from her hair, an inner part of me rebelled and added it to the background instead. The third and final option is I was just worried that now that Adelinde is covered in cool colors, that the piece itself would just bleed together, so I decided to add some warm colors into the background to help separate things up a bit. Now here's where I decided to just use acrylic paint. I usually just do brush-tipped markers on these pieces, but I was so frustrated with the amount of colors that I had available that I just wanted to play with the tones and mix up my own hues. This was my first time putting acrylic paint to Lineart, so it was a little scary at first, but it became addicting the more I got into it. This in turn made me wish that I had just planned to use acrylic paint from the beginning. But honestly, I wouldn't have known how to do that, because I just learned so much from doing this piece. It was quite a jump from digital art, where I can just do anything in any old order that I want. I'm not gonna lie. I daydreamed of making the foreground on a different piece of paper and just gluing it on top of my canvas. But no, that'd be cheating. Even though I logically know it probably won't turn out all that great, I might still try it one day, just so I can see for myself whether I like it or not. The part of me that likes making these intricate backgrounds isn't always great at communicating with the part of me that likes making anime foregrounds. I would very much like to combine them, so I'll keep finding ways to mix the two ideas until I come up with something that can please even the perfectionist in me. Even though it seems like a daunting task to take on, I feel like I'm closer than I've ever been, because I feel like this is the happiest mixture of the two worlds that I've ever been able to attain. And I'm really happy with this. Even though something happens a little later on that makes me really sad, I feel like it was salvaged in a good way. In fact, there are some ways that I like the finished piece more than what you currently see here. But enough future talk. We'll get there when we get there. Now, I know sometimes my art slips out of view, and that's because I'm currently using a binder as a makeshift drafting table. At the beginning of the video, I was actually using an old laptop fan that belonged to my wife. It unfortunately broke from me using it to paint on top of. Sorry, honey. Hopefully soon, I'll be able to get a drafting table, and I won't have to chase my artwork with a pen as it slides down the table. Here off to the side, you may have noticed that I have reference photos there, including ones of my own artwork. Because I take periodic shots with my phone, I can always come back later and add stuff back in. Man, these flowers, I think I redrew them 3 or 4 different times. And each time they kind of came out a little different. Also, hidden superpower. Learn to draw flowers. They go everywhere. Drawing a scenic background? Well, of course they go there. Someone watching a TV? Well, there's a flower vase in the background. Someone at a vending machine? Add a flower popping up out of the sidewalk behind them. These guys literally go just about everywhere, and they make pieces feel more alive and lived in. Honestly, if you had a picture of an astronaut in space, and they had a flower pot in their viewing window, I probably wouldn't think too much about it. I might stop and wonder how you water it without getting it everywhere, but that's about it. Anyway, short flower tangent aside, the river I have here is fine. I don't want to complain about it too much because people who've seen it love it, and I don't want to poo-poo it. This rock wall slope from the water is also samey too. I did my best to speckle it and give the impression of rocks, but it is what it is. I can't stress enough how important it is to find the good enough level and just move on sometimes. What's that one phrase going around? It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to exist. Yeah, I placed that logic face up in attack mode. Anyway, finally getting to color Adelinde herself. All that planning that we did earlier is finally starting to check in and pay off. Even though I wasn't 100% happy with the color palette I picked for her earlier, here it looks really nice. Almost as if this is where she's meant to be. She fits right in. I just hope she looks right in other settings too, but for now, I can accept this. This is the point of the picture where it starts to feel like all the hard work up to this point is finally paying off. All the puzzle pieces have been gathered and are starting to fall into place now. Now, it just wouldn't do if she bled with herself, so I make a lot of steps to make sure that even though she has blue hair and blue clothes, it's not the same blue, they're different blues. Her hair is more of a white blue and her clothes are more of a teal blue. The struggles of an artist. This is definitely easier to fight with in digital art, I'll say that. And here I'm finally going to start with the important log piece that has been inspired since the very beginning of this picture to begin with. And even though it's not really a log anymore per se, it's more of just a giant gnarled root, I'm happy with it regardless. There's some parts of it that are kind of weird and misshapen, but I kind of feel like that's just characteristic of trees in general. They take on such weird shapes. And then down here we have this green stuff. What is it, you may ask? It could be moss. It could be grass. Honestly, I was kind of thinking of both, so yes. The answer is yes. Both. Both is good. I might even get that random guy in the background who's just like, it's chia seed. I don't know. Yeah, on this patch down here, I tried to do some dark and then light and then medium, and no, that's not how you do things. You just gotta do the dark to lights. It's just better that way. Or light to darks. You just gotta dedicate yourself to one spectrum to the other. And then we have this part coming up. I regret this part so much, but looking back on it, it's still fascinating to watch, even though I know it ends up in tragedy. And I'm still happy that I was able to salvage this mistake. And the reason why I'm doing this is I really wanted to add in that fog aspect that we had talked about earlier. And I was trying to get myself to let it go, but I really just couldn't let it go. I was latched on to the fog aesthetic, and even though I tried to skip it and come back to it, that wasn't a good idea. I definitely should have done it before even attempting to draw and color. Well, not draw, but color Adelinde, and then fix her on top of it, but that probably wouldn't have ended up good either. It's still interesting how I decided to do this. I got some paper plates because they're mostly waterproof, because, you're supposed to eat food on them, and food tends to be wet. And I also remember that I had poster putty, so I thought maybe I'd try to use it to bind down the paper plates while I painted over them. And that part went okay. They actually didn't damage the artwork at all, which I'm relieved. I didn't really think about while I was doing it, and I was so locked onto my task I didn't really think about it, so I could have ruined the picture there too with the poster putty had it decide to rip up parts of the paper. And there it goes. Here comes the fog effect. I was trying really hard to put this down, and I was hoping that it would lighten up when it dried, but I don't think I watered down the paint enough, so it came out really opaque. Luckily, poster putty let go. I was able to get the tape off of the paper without ripping the page, thankfully. I would have been really sad there, too. And this is where I start the rescue mission to try and salvage the piece. I tried not to think of it as destroyed. I tried to think of this as a setback rather than a complete act of destruction. At first, I tried to dab in some colors to see if I could save some of the fog effect, but eventually I gave that up in favor of just trying to bring the vibrant background back. I took this as an opportunity to fix some of the things I wasn't fond of, like the drab rock slope and the bushes that just bled in together. I was also very careful to not put down too much color at once, because the acrylic white paint was resisting the pigment in my brush tip pens. Some places were starting to bleed, while others were starting to make the paper warp from the moisture. I just took it slow and thought about everything going down onto the paper. And with that, I would call this a saved piece. Having said all that, I did intend to do more. I was hoping to come back at the end and add in some watercolors to emphasize some of the shadows from the sunset, but this poor girl has been through enough, and I'm just gonna call it here. I will add a little screen cap though that I made in Clip Studio with an edit of what I was intending to do next, and then I will just leave it there. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed going on this journey with me. Until next time.